powerful live stream anywhere, and I am proud to be a part of this Bongino army. Did you hear Trump on Hannity last night? Listen, I want you to know, I am okay with this. I know there are a lot of swampy Republicans who feel like when we win, we should show some courtesy or whatever to outgoing presidents on the Democrat side. But when they win, it's okay when they weaponize government and they throw you in the freaking clink. I'm not for that, folks. There is a way to stop this bullshit from happening. And the way to stop it from happening is very simple. When they actually break the law, like I believe Joe Biden might have, members of his family were engaged in legal proceedings about it, notably Hunter before the pardons, then I believe there should be a full-blown investigation. Why should, well, mercy, what are you, stupid? This guy, there were legal proceedings going on showing Biden being implicated in a major international corruption scheme. I'm sorry. The only way to stop weaponized government is to show them what happens when government's turned on them. The difference is we didn't commit any crimes and they did. Listen very closely to Trump's words here. Listen, I'm all for this. I don't care what any of these swampies tell you. If he's ready to go after Biden, I'm all in. Check this out.
I went through 4 years of hell by this scum that we had to deal with. I went through 4 years of hell. I spent millions of dollars in legal fees, and I won. But I did it the hard way. It's really hard to say that they shouldn't have to go through it also. It is very hard to say that.
Because they should have to go through it. Folks, how else do you think the Democrats are going to... Let me ask you a simple question. Because a couple of people from the media reached out yesterday. A guy was nice, so I'm going to leave his name. He wasn't like a really bad guy. But from a left-leaning outlet, I'm considering talking to him. So, but wasn't mean or anything. But I know you're watching my show. So to the left-leaning media people out here, what lesson do you think Joe Biden and the Biden crime family take from this? The son was knee-deep in, without question, what appears to be an international influence peddling scheme. If you think otherwise, you're too stupid to talk to, and I really can't help you. The influence peddling campaign was designed to sell access to Joe Biden, who was a senator, the vice president, and the president. That's clear as day. We leave office. Donald Trump gets charged with a fake fraud case with no actual victims. You got a lady up there lobbing charges at him who goes on CNN with one of the wackiest interviews I've ever heard. You've got Judge Engo run people out of New York trying to take all his property. And what? We're supposed to ignore all this? What lesson does the left take out of it? The lesson the left takes out of this is simple. There are no consequences for us. We can do whatever we want. And you idiots who are in charge, we're going to hit you guys and you'll do nothing in return. Folks, I'm not about wasting time. We got 2 years to fix this thing. But I'm glad Donald Trump is actually talking about this. Cutesy time is over. And this is what cutesy time is over looks like. I wanted to make sure we got past Inauguration Day before I did this thank you show. Because honestly, I was afraid something crazy was going to happen. We had all these problems with the Secret Service. I think we defeated them so soundly, the resistance kind of had the wind pulled out of their sails. But it's real. So I have a list of people to thank for Trump 2.0 coming up. But I want to get to this first because some things are going on right now in the media that if you're not following this show, you're missing. Folks, my Rock'em Sock'em robots, I would show you the... Folks, I broke it yesterday because, well, you didn't actually, they actually still work. You can stick them in there, but I was like, holy shit. Yeah, that was someone gave me a guitar. But I broke that's a guitar over there. Someone sent me a damn Bongino. It's actually pretty cool. It's green, though, which is a little weird. The Rock'em Sock'em robots theory is working. They don't know what to do. They're trying to focus on this mass deportation operation because they love illegals, and they're trying to show every single illegal immigrant that gets deported, oh, my gosh, look, they're crying. And they can't. Because then they got to move on to Pete Hegseth, and then they got to move on to Tulsi Gabbard, and then they got to move on to the war against DEI, which is really DIE. They don't know what it's a Rock'em Sock'em robots. It's not the Trump dance, but it looks like it. It is working. But the media is trying to refocus now, and I want you to be cautious. Get ready. This is an important part of the show. There are two things they really care about, and you'll see them if they have to. Sideline Hegseth, Tulsi, tax cuts, because they have to preserve the open border and they have to preserve their allegiance to DEI, okay? It involves two things. Electoral advantage with demographic destiny, bringing people into the country illegally. They've set it off. They can't have that stop. They'll never win an election again. You got it? And second, the reason they can't let DEI go is, folks, a merit-based society runs counter to everything communists and collectivists believe in. They can't have merit because it would be an entrepreneurial, free market, capitalist system where people who work hard succeed. That's not what communists believe. Am I wasting any time, Guy? It's like, from each according to their abilities, to each according to their needs. They don't care about your merit. So they can't give this up. They have to detach you from any objective truth. There's no men, there's no women, there's no merit, there's no nothing the government's going to tell you. So this happened yesterday. First, on the immigration front. If they don't have illegal immigration, they have no chance of winning any additional elections in the future nationally, and they know it. Here's Dana Bash. This segment is a little long. It's about 1:30. I try to clip him at a minute, but it's critical you listen to the whole thing. It's Tom Homan. Dana Bash from CNN pretends to be genuinely stunned that when they do these immigration raids, if they find you here illegally, that you'll be deported. Is this woman dopey, or is she just pretending to be dopey? Here's Homan like, yeah, we're going after the bad guys, but if you're there illegally too, you're going too. And she's like, huh? I want you to watch her face because they are so offended we're interrupting their demographic destiny timeline. Check this out.
And so what is happening as we speak is limited to those with criminal records?
That's the target of this operation. But like I said many times, in places like sanctuary cities where we can't arrest a bad person in the jail, we would like to have access to the jail to arrest a criminal alien in the safety and security of a county jail, which is safer for the community, safer for the officers, and safer for the alien. But when you release a public safety threat out of a sanctuary jail and won't give us access to him, that means we got to go to the neighborhood and find him. And we will find him. But when we find him, he may be with others. Others that don't have a criminal conviction but are in the country illegally, they will be arrested too. Because we're not going to strike, and this is the difference between the last administration and this administration. ICE is going to enforce the immigration law. There's nothing in the INA, the Immigration Nationality Act, says you got to be convicted of a serious crime in order to be removed from this country. So there's going to be more collateral arrests in sanctuary cities because they forced us to go in the community and find the guy we're looking for.
Let me just make sure that I understand what you're saying, because at first you said that the first targets are those with criminal records, but you are also saying that those who are undocumented in the U.S., also who don't have criminal records, people who are working in their communities, maybe even have spouses who are American citizens, they could be swept up with ICE today as well?
What I'm telling you is when we go find our priority target, which is a criminal alien, if he's with others in the United States illegally, we're going to take enforcement action against him. We're going to enforce the immigration law.
Why does she need that explained to her twice? Is she unaware that we have an immigration process that if you violate it, you've actually broken the law? The answer is, folks, she's not stupid. I wish I could tell you that. It's easy. Oh, she's dumb. She's not dumb. She knows that. She's pretending to be dumb because this is part of the Democrats' long-term demographic destiny plan. They are losing people from blue states. They are moving to red states. It's creating a real conundrum for them because the House of Representatives is based on state population. As red state populations in Florida and Texas explode, it gives Florida and Texas massive power in the House of Representatives. The Democrats may never win the House again if the population continues to move to red states. The Electoral College is also based, that votes for the president, is also based on population. The number of Electoral College votes you get is the House of Representatives members you have plus 2. You see what happens here? 2 out of the 3 branches of government are almost entirely determined by illegal immigration if they can't backfill the population of blue states. Folks, it's not a conspiracy theory, man. They talk about it all the time. If you doubt me, pause the show and go look up demographic destiny. You can watch the video we played 1,000 times of Democrats talking about it. Here's Homan again, who's, by the way, an amazing guy. I've known Tom Homan a long time. We're going to try to get him on the radio show. Jim, if we could see if he's available sometime in the coming weeks. Here's Homan hitting hard and hitting fast. Donald Trump's been in office less than a few days. They already got 308 hardcore criminals out of the country. Now, why is this important? Well, obviously, Dan, it's important because they're hardcore criminals. Yeah, but that's not it. Folks, if you ever study criminology, and if you're in the chat, feel free to chime in right now. If you know this, if you studied criminal behavior, sociology, the overwhelming majority of serious crimes are committed by an increasingly small number of lunatics. Maybe 1% of the population. I mean, how many serial murderers do you know? The answer is zero. And there's a good reason for it. You get the crazy people out of the country, you're going to see the crime rate drop dramatically. Here's Homan hitting hard, hitting fast. They're getting the bad guys out of the country quick. Check this out.
If you're in the country illegally, ICE can visit you. But right now, as we said repeatedly, and the President Trump's been clear, we're concentrating on the worst first, the public safety threats, the national security threats. And just yesterday, in the last 24 hours, ICE arrested over 308 serious criminals. Some of them were murderers. Some of them were rapists. Some of them raped a child. Some were sexual assault of a child. So ICE is doing their job, and they're prioritizing just as the president said they would. So the ICE is performing excellent right now out in the field.
I need you to do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, because unlike some radio hosts, not the good ones, the Levins and the excellent radio hosts out there, those guys are amazing. I'm asking you to double check my work because it only adds to the relationship you and I have. It makes me more credible, and it makes you kind of want to tune in because you know the information is good and is accurate. Look up what I just told you. The overwhelming majority of serious crime, I'm not talking about petty thefts, not that that's not serious, but I'm talking about serious crimes, rapes, felony assaults, home invasions, are committed by an extremely small number of people. That's why broken windows policing works. You get 10 or 15 bad guys off the street. Those 10 or 15 bad guys were probably going to go on and commit 20 or 30 violent crimes before they got caught. You do the math. This stuff matters. And Homan's taking no shit. Another thing I told you about, I want you to focus on these two things because they are distracted. Rock'em Sock'em Robots is working, but they're going to need more. They're going to have to hit them with more because if there's two things the Democrats and the media apparatus cannot run away from, they cannot forfeit DEI because of the culture war on objective values, and they cannot forfeit illegal immigration or they'll never win again. They will try their damnedest to make this the focus. It's up to the Trump team to every time they start to nail down a story, start to distract them with something else because they want illegal immigration. But the DEI stuff is important too. The meltdown continues. Folks, the gender ideology stuff, there's no difference between a man and a woman. There are 7,000 genders, is so freaking stupid. Seriously, a child would understand how moronic this stuff is. But they can't give it up. No matter how many times they're humiliated. You had a Supreme Court judge now, Ketanji Brown Jackson, humiliate herself in front of an international audience and ridiculously claim to be an imbecile, stating she does not know what a woman is. It is an adult human female. Is this difficult? There's actual genetic evidence. Of course it isn't. They play dumb. I never, ever put this guy on my platform because he's such an embarrassing, humiliating joke that to give this guy even 5 seconds, it really diminishes the show. But this piece is worth it. You ever heard of this dipshit, this Harry Sisson kid? He's like 12. The guy's, why people pay this guy, I have no idea. He's like, I guess, a Democrat influencer. He goes on the Piers Morgan show, and you'll see they don't care how dumb they look. They will stick to this DEI gender ideology bullshit no matter what, because once it goes away, everything in their culture war, people are going to start asking questions about all the other culture war components too. Watch this segment.
Do you think there should be more than two genders in America?
Yeah, I don't know what that executive order means. I don't know what the president declared.
It means there are two genders, male and female. Do you disagree with that?
How many genders are there, Harry?
Yeah,
come on, little guy. How many genders are there?
Again, these guys don't know what they're talking about, so they won't be able to answer.
Harry, how many genders are there?
How many genders are there, Harry?
How many genders are there?
What's the legal? I'm gonna use Joe Biden's answers. At least two. At least two. That satisfies.
Well, how many more other than male, female?
That's a TikTok answer.
No, there's at least two.
Yeah.
There's at least two.
Well, no, hang on. There's male and female.
Kid is like human brain
Donald
rot.
Trump says there's male and female. There are two.
Okay, Dave.
How
Russian
many
Rubin,
more
come
are
on
there
now.
after male and female, Harry?
There's at least two. Now, anyway, let me get back to what I was
How
saying.
many more are there?
I mean, it's a pretty freaking simple question, isn't it? Folks, I want you to put aside this stupidity for a second. I know it's hard. I'm just asking you from a practical perspective. If you were a member of the United States government that's about to enact laws that are going to protect your fictitious genders, yet you can't even describe what they are, what they're called, or even how many they are, how are you going to write a law? I know I got to take a break. I want to play this one more, though, before the break. This is soon to be the next leader of Canada. He's way up in the polls, Pierre Poilievre. Asked the exact same question of a media guy. You guys keep talking about all these genders you want legal protections for. What are they? It's like asking legal protections for an endangered species. What's the species? Oh, I don't know. We're just making it up. Watch this.
First day on the job, President Trump signed an executive order, the U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable. If elected as prime minister, is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Well, there's personally, I am a man. I am as people who say cis man. There are people there who, they say they're
me too.
Gender neutral.
Well,
you are a man. Yes. There are people there who say they're gender neutral. Yeah. They say they're gender neutral.
I'm aware of two. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone.
I'm trying not to laugh, trying to preserve it. You want legal protections for a specific gender class you have no idea exists. You can't name what the gender class is. There is no perimeter around the fence of what you categorize as a gender class, but you want all these legal protections for this gender class. I wake up every morning and I thank the Lord, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean it. I don't use his name. I do. I thank him. I wake up every morning. I say, I'm Dan Bongino. I love Jesus and Jesus loves me. And you know what? I use these affirmations every day. And I thank him for seeing the light. I don't thank him for being a Republican. We screw stuff up too. I thank him for seeing the light. I mean it. I really do. Can you imagine being this stupid, being a media guy? Hey, you got another gender? No, I just heard there was something. Really? So you want me as a potential leader of Canada to draw up a massive piece of legislation about something you have no idea about whatsoever? Good job. Quick break. We're back to the show. Yes, I will. I know a lot of people in the chat are asking me about the Secret Service director spot. I kind of said my piece on it last week. Not a lot more to say, but I'll address it quick. And then I want don't miss the next segment. I've got some thank yous to get out there, and they're important. I think you're going to like this. Been itching to do this show for a long time. We've seen the headlines. Cyber attacks on the grid, drones in the sky, violent attacks on everyday Americans. Here's the ugly truth. No leader, no system can protect you from anything. And if in a crisis, an emergency, you're waiting for the government to save you, you're going to die. And I'm really sorry to tell you that. Everyone's going to need food in an emergency, and panic buying only makes it worse. You're going to show up. Your kids are going to be like, Dad, where's the food? I don't know. Don't do it. Get your family prepared with My Patriot Supply. They have a 4-week emergency food kit that gives you the nutrition you need to stay strong in a crisis. With 2,000 calories a day and 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals, the kit helps keep you going when every meal matters. Plus, My Patriot Supply foods are packed in ultra-durable, heavy-duty pouches that can last up to 2.5 decades in storage. Right now, they're offering $50 off their 4-week food kit. So go to MyPatriotSupply.com now, grab yours for $50 off. Don't put it off. Now's the time to prepare. That's MyPatriotSupply.com to get your 4-week food kit today. MyPatriotSupply.com. Thank you, My Patriot Supply. We appreciate it. So I'm getting a ton of questions here, a lot in the chat, and I really appreciate it. People were asking me about the official appointment of Sean Curran, who is a friend of mine. Although I don't let that get in the way. I have an obligation to you. I've said that many times as the new Secret Service director. First, I obviously want to congratulate him. It would be kind of déclassé to not do that. I hope he does a good job, and I think we all hope and pray. I hope we are praying to whatever God you pray to, and I think you know my Savior is Jesus, but I hope that we give him the knowledge and the discernment to do the right thing to fix this broken agency. Folks, there's a lot to fix. I let my feelings be known last week. Sean is a friend. He's a man of high character. He's a man with dignity. I was not sure last week. I'm not sure today. It was the right pick for right now. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not my business. I mean, it's my business because I love Donald Trump and want to protect him. But when I say not my business, I don't mean it in the global way. I mean in the kind of, you get what I'm saying? Donald Trump won the presidency. He's free to pick his own people. That job, as I said to you months ago, was not for me, but I would have liked to at least had some input into some stuff. They didn't want it. That's okay. It is. I know you say, people say okay, trying to sound like it is. It's okay. They may have gotten the same advice from someone else and they didn't need it. I need you guys to understand that. So I wish him the best. He's a good guy. I'm just not sure he's the right guy for right now. I think he would have been great as a deputy, and you get some other kind of door kicker in there, because there are two things I'm going to be watching, and I don't care who the director is. It could be my father. If they don't happen, I'm going to be on it like white on rice. They have got to get rid of investigations, and they damn well better get rid of protecting foreign dignitaries. They are distracting them from the mission of keeping both President Trump and Vice President Vance alive. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Nice guy, really good guy. We all wish him the best. My prayers, candidly, are with him that he can fix this thing. And let's hope he does. But what matters, folks? Do emotions matter? Folks in the chat, what matters? Who gets it first? Do emotions matter? Oh, he's my buddy. Oh, we love it. What is that? What matters? What matters? Who gets it first? Who gets it first? Appreciate you, Dan. Thank you. Thank you. Respectfully, Dan. Facts. Oh, who did it? Mindy Kins, which I think you've beaten everyone to the punch a couple times, if I remember. Mindy Kins says outcomes. That's all that matters. If Sean fixes this place, keeps Donald Trump alive, then he was a damn good pick, and we should all celebrate it. We should all give him the accolades he deserves. End of story. There you go, Mindy Kins, knocking it out of the park. Okay. So I told you, I've been itching to do this show for a long time. You guys can probably go look up the piece. Anita, see if someone can find it. Conservative Review, I used to write for them years ago, and it should be posted the day after Trump won the election in 2016, November of 2016, because I remember writing it from the airport, and I had this idea. I'm like, I have to thank a bunch of people, like being sarcastic. And I thought it's the perfect time to do this again, because Trump 2.0 does not happen without this group of idiots. So if we can find a piece, great. Let me take my last break, and I'm going to get back to this. And the first person we're going to thank, and I'm going to bring you the receipts. I get it, I'm saying this sarcastically, but I mean it. Trump 2 and 1.0 does not happen without Barack Obama. I am as serious as a heart attack. You'll see what I mean coming up next. Hey, I've been using the Bone Charge infrared sauna blanket and red light face mask ever since they sent them to me. I can't recommend them enough. You know what's a nice little benefit is red light face mask? Man, it puts you to sleep. That red light, whew. I first turned to the sauna blanket to help ease muscle recovery with detoxification. It's a real game changer for me and for everyone I recommend it to. It's easy to use. Just wrap yourself up, let the infrared heat work its magic. I've seen a real difference in how relaxed and rejuvenated I feel afterwards. The red light face mask, equally impressive. I've been using it to help improve my skin's texture, reduce inflammation. I've seen fantastic results. Hey, I'm not shy about it. It's like having a mini spa in your home. You want to try them out? You're in luck. Paula actually just bought another one. Bone Charge. Jump in the chat. Tell them we're not kidding. Paula just bought another one because we broke the first one. Not their fault. Our fault. Head to bonecharge.com/Bongino. Use code Bongino at checkout to get 15% off. Both of these products are really amazing. They're part of my life hack routine. I'm sure you're going to love them too. Use code Bongino at BONCHARGE, bonecharge.com/Bongino, and save 15%. These statements and products are not been evaluated by the FDA. They're not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease or condition. And our last sponsor, before the most important segment of the show. A lot of people ask me how I lost weight. I lost 30 pounds. I was getting a little gooey. Goo's no good. Goo be gone. I don't like goo. So what did I do? I started lean. I called up my friend Miles at Brickhouse Nutrition. I said, Miles, I don't want to take these shots. I said, is there a product out there you and the doctors at Brickhouse can put together? He said, Dan, let me work on it. It took some time, and they put together the most amazing product for losing weight, lean. It's impressive. It's natural, studied ingredients. It's studied target weight loss in similar ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, helps control appetite and cravings, and helps you burn fat by converting fat to energy. Got a New Year's resolution? Want to drop a few lbs, get rid of the goo? He's like, that's not in the spot. It's my spot. If you're ready to lose weight in a smarter way, let me get you started with 20% off your first order. Just use code DAN20 at brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Pick up lean today. brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Code DAN20. Statements and products are not been evaluated by the FDA. They're not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Not a substitute or alternative for care from a healthcare provider. Thank you, lean. Back to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I would appreciate you sharing this segment if you can. Triple Z guy, the MAGA kitty, Insurrection Barbie. If you guys get around to it, I want to thank some of the losers who made the mistake of poking the bear. Who's the bear? Donald Trump, of course, is the bear. I want to thank Barack Obama. We don't have Trump 1.0 or 2.0 without him. You doubt me? I want you to watch this Inside Edition clip from a little kind of mini scandal that happened years ago when Barack Obama thought he was a real wise ass and a funny guy, attacking at the time civilian Donald Trump for going after Obama. And one thing Donald Trump doesn't like is you try to embarrass him, Donald Trump's going to make you pay. And he did. Check this out.
Is this the moment Donald Trump decided to run for president?
Donald Trump is here tonight.
The year was 2011. The place, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Trump and his wife Melania were guests at the glittering affair for the Washington elite. It started pleasantly enough. Trump got a friendly greeting from actress Scarlett Johansson. But inside, it was another story. President Obama started mocking Trump mercilessly, mainly for the role Trump was playing in the birther movement that questioned whether Obama was really born in America.
No one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac?
Obama didn't hide his utter disdain for the reality TV star.
Obviously, we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently, in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
Everybody. Thank you, B. Thank you, Barack. No, I'm serious. Barack Obama thought he was a real smart ass. The media people like, hey, look at that stupid Donald Trump. Real estate empire, #1 TV show, manages $1 billion portfolio. What an idiot. I'd rather be Barack Obama, who was last time I checked, what was his job again, Michael? Shit. Yes, it was like nothing. Oh, no, come on. He was a community organizer. What does that mean? I don't know. People just make it up. That means, when you go in for a job interview and there's the missing period in your resume, first you worked in fast food and then you had something else. Well, why were you not working for 3 years? I was organizing in the community. Do you have any witnesses? No, I don't. That was Barack Obama. So Barack Obama thought it'd be a good idea to poke the bear. Poke him. Don't poke Donald Trump, folks. I'm going to tell you right now. Do not. I'm warning you, media people and everyone else. You poke this guy, I promise you he will get the last laugh. You want to talk about a guy who lives by the axiomatic language alert, axiomatic truth. Fuck around and find out. You are now in the find out phase. By the way, you see those pens he was throwing out? This is the one he used in his first term to sign the build the wall thing. He gave it to me and my family. Sorry, that was like, look at me. I'm so cool. I have no excuse. I shouldn't have, but it is true. It's my prized possession. I love this thing. It sits right there. I look at it every day. I know, that was lame. I shouldn't have said that. It's like talking about your education. Jasmine doesn't know a lot of the golden rules yet. Guys, what's the rule about talking about your education? If you're talking about your education and telling people your degrees, tell everyone in the chat, tell Jasmine, you're probably an asshole, right? Nobody cares that you've got an MBA. Or nobody cares. Okay? So there's my first thank you, Barack Obama. My second thank you, in no particular order, even though it may look as much, is Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have forgotten this story, but it's an important one. We would not have Donald Trump being martyred by a weaponized justice system. And honestly, I'm not sure he runs again. I can't prove a counterfactual. Hold on, I'm explaining this poorly. Rewind the tape. I hate when I do that. I've got a job to get you the show precisely and succinctly. I'm honestly not sure after the 2016 assault on Donald Trump, the collusion hoax and all this stuff, that if they don't go after him using the justice system, that he just doesn't ride off into the sunset. I don't know. He could have made himself $1 billion. He still had a lot of political capital. People loved him. He could have given speeches. He could have ran all his companies. But the fact that they turned the government against him, I think made him say, I'm not tolerating this shit. I'm going to go in there and clean this mess up. But a lot of you forget that this whole thing started with Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn, don't ever forget this. General Mike Flynn was one of Donald Trump's first appointments in 2016 as the National Security Advisor. I want you to listen to this closely. General Flynn wrote a manifesto. Most people don't know this. Absolutely decimating the intelligence community for all of their failures, saying, you guys are not getting it right. We're going to fix this. The intelligence community, remember Chuck Schumer? Remember what he said to Rachel Maddow? Jim, pull this for the radio show. He told Rachel Maddow, don't go after the intelligence community. They'll get you 6 different ways from Sunday. The IC said, no way Mike Flynn is going to be the National Security Advisor. So they had to take. Here's the thing. I'll wrap it up. They had no way to take Mike Flynn out because he'd done nothing wrong. So what happened? They made it up. They said, we're going to charge him with the Logan Act. Something never successfully charged in American history. A basically made up crime because Mike Flynn, they said, contacted the Russian ambassador, which is ridiculous. John Kerry went and visited Bashar al-Assad. Whose idea was it to charge Mike Flynn with a made up fabricated crime never successfully charged in United States history? Put it up on the screen, please, Daddy-O. Oh, yes. One Joseph R. Biden. Joe Biden may have personally raised the idea to investigate Mike Flynn. A partially blacked out copy of FBI agent Peter Strzok's notes attached to the filing includes a mention that appears to say VP, Logan Act. Round of applause for Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe. You and Barack, if it wasn't for you, we don't have Trump 2.0. I'm telling you, we don't. He may have reevaluated his entire career choice. But because you dipshits decided to go after him this way, you poked the bear. And the bear bites and scratches, and it hurts. Here's another thank you. This woman doesn't get enough gratitude from us, folks, and I'm really offended. I love you all in the chat. We got 138,000 people. Very nice, 139. Why are we not? I don't want to condemn my chatsters because you're the P1s, but why are we not more gracious to AOC? You guys have really let me down, and ladies in the chat. You should be thinking, everybody in the chat thank AOC. No, I'm serious. Thank AOC. Without AOC, the dumbest member of Congress, and her communist nonsense trying to pull the radical left-wing lunatics even farther to the left, without that, there is no way the left gets as crazy as it does, which causes a counter-revolution on the right and leads to a massive landslide for Donald Trump. And that's what it was. Everybody thanking it? Thank you. Oh, who said it? Who said it? But BP Sniper, thanks AOC. Yes, everybody should thank AOC. Thank you. Get in the chat. Thank AOC. She deserves it. She deserves some gratitude. And AOC, who again is the dumbest member of Congress, apparently, can you put the BBC article up first? Apparently missed this story where Donald Trump just won a lawsuit for $15 million because they ridiculously called him a racist. You can see it. It's in the BBC and everywhere. Trump gets $15 million, ABC News defamation case. Calling Donald Trump a rapist, I promise you, you will find yourself in court and you will lose because it's made up and you can't do that, okay? Of course, because AOC is too stupid. Here's AOC calling Donald Trump, or implying at least, that he's just that. Check this out.
All these journalists are like, Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Are you going to the inauguration? Let me make myself clear. I don't celebrate rapists. So no, I'm not going to the inauguration tomorrow.
Look, thank you guys. Chic, HEMO, thanks AOC. Sunny Girl says, big, Sunny Girl 29, big thanks. Good job, AOC. Nash City Baby says, good job, AOC. You played yourself. AOC, big thank you. Yes, I'm serious. Thank her. There is no way the Democrat Party becomes as dumb as it is without this idiot pulling to the left. I'm assuming there's going to be a lawsuit coming her way. She did not say it, as far as I know, on the House floor. So I doubt she has any legal protections. So good luck. I hope you got yourself a good attorney, you freaking moron. Another big thank you, folks. I said in no particular order because I'm not sure that this guy isn't even more important than Obama. That's why I had a hard time, like, who's number one, who's number two? The answer is, I don't know. You guys decide. Chatsters, you tell me what you think. This guy may be more important than Barack Obama to getting Trump elected in Trump 2.0. Wait, anyone have a guess where I'm going with this? Adam Schiff, short round, says, no, close enough, but not Adam Schiff. I'll see if anybody gets it. Shifty, a lot of Shifties. No, not Axelrod. No. Don Dog, Chuck Schumer. What's that? I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. Yeah, he just got a pardon. This guy, I want to see if anybody gets it. Who did? Put him up on the screen. Shout out to our chatsters. We got to think. Yeah, there we go. Who is it? Fitch Munderson. Fitch Munderson. I'm just saying the names, folks. There you go. But yes. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci. If it wasn't for Fauci, I'm dead serious. I'm not sure Trump even runs again. This guy, there we go, Fitchster. Good man, brother or sister. I don't know is that Lucy, my dog? And you ever did that? Right, Jasmine? Is that not Lucy? That's freaking Lucy. Fitch, have you been at my house? Do we know each other? Fitch, is that like my? Is that like some Anon name for my? That's my dog. I swear to you, that's Lucy. Fitch, if that's not my dog, then you got a dog that's like the doppelganger for my dog. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a Maze Moore video. We love Maze Moore, one of the best accounts on X to follow. An amazing video account, MazeMoore. Everybody in the Bongino Army should be following it. Puts in so much work to great videos. Here he is with a little compilation of Fauci, less than a minute, changing his position on just about everything. If it wasn't for this guy, I'm not sure we have this glorious inauguration day. Check this out.
First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. And the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did.
So Guy just brought up a good point. Not only do we have to, everybody in the chat, thank Fauci. Come on, get in there. You can't just thank AOC. Thank Fauci, Dr. Fauci. But Guy just brought up a good point. There's no question in my mind the election doesn't turn out. Trump probably would have won, but does he win in the landslide without these idiots? The answer is I'm not really sure. But Guy's like, Dan, you know what? We really owe him a debt of gratitude too, because this guy has been an absolute cornucopia of content for the last, 4 years? I mean, if there's one guy outside of Mr. Potato Head, Brian Stelter, who has fed this show an endless list of content we can mock and laugh at, I don't know who else wins. So Guy's right. Not just for Donald Trump, but for us. Everybody thanking him. Follow me. Thank you. Speak the Truth, McGroin. Pin that. Follow Maze Moore. Speak the Truth's been getting involved here too a lot. We got these McGroin crew. You're always all over it. Okay, I've got a couple more for you. One person, again, who deserves some special accolades from the legal side. We've got a doctor. We've got a vice president. We've got a president. We've got a member of Congress. Shame on us if we don't enter the legal profession and start to pull people out of the DOJ. Folks, if deranged Jack Smith, of course, the special tyrant investigating Donald Trump for a fake crime he made up for a fake insurrection, if Jack Smith does not drop another L, which he did, remember, this guy's lost at the Supreme Court more than most qualified lawyers will ever see the Supreme Court in their lifetime. If Jack Smith doesn't do what he did prosecuting Donald Trump, I'm not sure, again, we win in the exact dynamic we won with. Here's an MSNBC segment quickly where we note Jack Smith was not given a pardon. So just kind of to parlay back to the beginning of the show, I have no problem with Donald Trump investigating Jack Smith either, and you shouldn't either. But Jack Smith doesn't have a pardon. But you deserve a lot of thanks, too. Thanks, Jack Smith, in the chat. Check this out.
Of clemency. I hope that President Biden will also issue preemptive pardons to all of those people threatened by the injustice of what will become the Department of Justice in the Trump administration. That, of course, includes Jack Smith and all of his staff, many Department of Justice lawyers. It includes President Biden himself.
Ted said that no pardon for Jack. Does everybody feel bad for Jack? No pardon. Is there like a tear emoji? Everybody cry a little bit? Jack Smith, we feel so bad for you, brother. No pardon. You may have to answer questions now. Gosh, that's so terrible. So terrible. Folks, I mean, think about it. Jack Smith may actually have to go pay lawyers. The government may be used against him to investigate his potential mis and malfeasance. Oh my gosh, the same thing that happened to Donald Trump. It's so awful. I feel so bad, don't you? Don't you feel terrible? Jasmine feels awful. She's sitting over there like, I can't even work here. I feel so bad. She's depressed. She doesn't even know what to do. She's like, this is the worst thing ever. Guy's pretty funny, but you don't hear the commentary, by the way, when the clips are playing. Guy's like, you just pulled this segment out of your ass, didn't you? I did not. I swear. I've been thinking about this segment. I'm not kidding. For the longest time. I just had to wait till the inauguration happened because I was deathly afraid I would jinx it. I know I'm a little superstitious. I know I believe in Jesus. Therefore, superstition is kind of stupid. Jesus has a plan. But I didn't want to jinx it, okay? That's why. I got a couple more thank yous. This one's pretty quick. Folks, where would we be without Alejandro Mayorkas? Obviously, Biden was the one making the rules. Mayorkas is turning on him. But this 4 seconds of audio. Guy, can you actually play this twice? Because I just don't want anyone to... It's only 4 seconds. If it's not for this 4 seconds of audio from Al Mayorkas, our DHS secretary, about the border, where people realize, like, wow, these people are really full of shit, I'm not sure the election looks the same way it did. Watch this.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open.
The trifecta never hurts. People think it
I want to be
does.
very clear.
Okay. Now they're just taking
advantage. Our
advantage.
borders are not open. Are
Folks.
not open. Not open. Are not open. Are not open. Are not open.
You ever see back in the day scratching the 1 and 2s, the turntables, like Pete Nice? Remember Pete Nice? My name is Pete. Without that ridiculosity, the borders are not open when we had freaking drones sitting there watching millions of people cross the border every month. I honestly, I think it's the first time the normies out there were like, holy shit, Bongino's not crazy. These guys really are nuts. I want to be clear, the border is closed. It's not open. We're watching it, dude. We're watching it right here. There are people climbing through your windows. Like, there's nobody in my house. They're climbing through the window right now. Thank you, Al Mayorkas. Thank you. Without you, we're just not here. So we got Obama, we got Biden, AOC, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tyrant Jack Smith, Al Mayorkas. I got 2 more for you. This one's a little more generic. We spend a lot of time on it. I love economics. Some of you hate it. Don't hate it. It's a great thing. There's a theory out there of economics that's so stupid. It's up there with Al Mayorkas saying the border's closed. It's called modern monetary theory, MMT. You can look it up. I'm not going to explain the whole thing because it's stupid. The idea behind modern monetary theory, which got in Biden and the Democrats' head, is it doesn't matter how much money the government spends because it can print more. Now, if you're sitting there, you're like, but if it prints more, it's going to be more money chasing the same products and there's going to be inflation. Yes, but a bunch of PhD loser assholes tried to convince and coax the American people that printing money endlessly was the way to go. If it wasn't for these losers, then I'm honestly not sure we win the election the way we did. We may have lost the Senate. Here's an article in The Hill. No friend to conservatives, by the way, The Hill. Read it. It's in the newsletter today. Bongino.com/newsletter. Did modern monetary theory elect Donald Trump? They note it's a fringe school of economics. It basically says the government can issue limitless amounts of money. Folks, there were actually people with a PhD who thought you could just print money and nothing would happen. I mean, think about how stupid that is. If that were the case, correct, why wouldn't you tell everyone in America to just go get an intaglio printer and forget working, just print your own money? It's a source of wealth. Oh, money doesn't grow on trees. It grows in the United States federal government when you listen to assholes who discuss modern monetary theory. Thank you, modern monetary theorists. And I would say, again, up there with Barack Obama, our last one. But I'm not sure how much credit she deserves. We can't do a segment without, of course, thanking the great, the legend. Thank her right now in the chat. This will be the last thank you, but I want this chat on the record forever. I want you all on the record thanking Kamala Harris, as we see in the Telegraph, from running potentially the worst presidential campaign in modern American history. Again, this is the Telegraph, no friend to conservatives. Kamala Harris ran the worst presidential campaign in modern American history. Whether it was her failure to answer a question, whether it was her stupid idea to not go on Joe Rogan. Hey, guys, do we do a lot of podcasts? Do we do a lot of interviews? But not a lot, correct? What do we do? Guy, you've been here the longest. Which ones do we do? We'll do Megyn. We'll do Ben Shapiro. Once in a blue moon. We don't do a lot of podcasts. It's just because I have a kid at home. We don't have a lot of time. And my family comes first. What do you guys, if Joe Rogan had asked us to come on, do we go on the show? Hell yeah, we go on the show. He's only the biggest podcaster in the cosmos. Kamala Harris's team was like, do we go on Joe Rogan's show? I'm not so sure. There were 1,000 stupid things they did. But thank you for surrounding yourself with some morons and running the worst presidential campaign in modern times. I did not ask for this, but she's a great dancer. Look at this. Look at the cringy look on her face when she realizes she looks like an idiot. You know when they laugh at themselves? Look at her. Here she is. He loves this clip, by the way. He plays it all the time. I still don't understand your obsession with this ridiculous clip. That was her announcement of her presidential campaign. The first time when she got how many votes for president? That's right. 0, a big goose egg. Thank you, Kamala Harris. All right, I got a couple other things I want to talk about. Please don't go anywhere. It's important stuff. Did you guys, folks in the chat, did you guys like that segment or was it stupid? Because the show is for you. If the segment is dumb, I'll never repeat it again. I swear, like the show is for you guys. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Did you like it? Let me see, folks in the chat. If you didn't like it, let me know. Lady Hawk, absolutely 100%. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I really thought we had to do that. Yes, okay, cool. You guys are the best. Okay, back to serious news because we still got some time with you here. And I will be doing the radio show today. My daughter's okay, so don't sweat that. Folks, Donald Trump is not screwing around with the Russians. There is a theory of international geopolitics out there. It's called the crazy man theory, the madman theory. You can look it up. I've described it before. It very simply states that when international leaders with a lot at stake, i.e. like nuclear war, when they can't predict the actions of the other side, that they'll generally withhold crossing red lines. I'll give you an example to kind of make it real. One of the reasons for as tyrannical and disgusting and evil as Kim Jong-un is, and Kim Jong-il and their predecessor, Kim Il-sung, all of them. One of the reasons, despite this tiny, impoverished country, people don't just invade North Korea is because Kim Jong-il is so freaking crazy that they're legit afraid he's going to launch a nuclear weapon. It's called the madman theory of politics. It's not meant to be an insult. Well, with Kim Jong-il, I don't care if you insult me, he's a scumbag. But, folks, people cannot predict Donald Trump. So he sends this out on True Social last night about Russia. He's like, hey, bro, listen, Vladimir, you better get this ridiculous war over. All caps, it's only going to get worse. If we don't make a deal soon, I have no choice but to put together tariffs, sanctions, and taxes on anything being sold in Russia and the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, he is not kidding. I promise you. And Vladimir Putin, if you think this guy is predictable and you think he won't make your life painful, you are out of your mind. I'm not here to give the Russians freaking advice. I share nothing in common with them, but I am here to protect the United States. And if you want this shit to end and you guys don't want to be thrown out of office, Putin, I suggest you listen to him. On a lighter note, folks, Democrats like AOC and others are obviously not that bright. I mean, why would you be a Democrat or a liberal in the first place? But one of the things you expect from liberals, wouldn't you say, guys, is at least the ability to spell basic words. Does anybody know how to spell the word eagle? Anyone? Anyone in the chat? It's a very complicated word. It's kind of like decusation of the pyramids or something like that. Like it's a really difficult thing to kind of spell out, right? Some people screw up spelling Massachusetts. Here is the mayor of Philadelphia, very happy about the football team. Did you guys see this? This is not AI. She's the mayor of Philadelphia. Listen to her get the Eagles chant going and listen to her precise spelling of eagle, or in her case,
E-L-G-S-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, birds!
Oh, dude. All right, guys in the chat, folks in the chat, Guy's saying this is an early candidate for, the end of the year, we put together our top 10, top 15 of the year. You guys think that should be considered? If you do, we'll segregate it into our end of the year potential candidates? Tell me in the chat. Yes, you do. No, you don't. Because I agree. This is the Democrats. How do you F up Eagle? E-L-G. What? Wait, hold on a second. I need to digest that. Wait. You want two in one show? Now he's getting out of control. You do. You got to. This is another one. Okay, so a lot of you are saying yes. Okay, well, consider it. I would never, ever, ever ask you for two in the same show. But Guy is correct. Well, you can't time these things. They're random. Tim Burchett, who is one of the best congressmen out there because of his outcomes. I love this guy. He's a congressman in Tennessee. He's on CNN with career bullshitter Jim Acosta, who's back to being the loser he was in the first term. And Acosta goes after Burchett, but Burchett gets the last word, and this is just priceless. Check this out.
Covered on CNN. What you're saying, this is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network SpongeBob reruns right now, Jim.
The verdict is in. Jim Acosta just got his ass handed to him. Is this a Maze Moore clip too? This is the next one. This is another Maze Moore clip. In case you forget, here is Jim Acosta. You want to talk about a guy, I mean, like the monarch of hoaxes. Here he is repeating every single Donald Trump hoax during the first term, and he said, has never apologized, as far as I know, for any of this. He's like, this isn't Fox News. Check this out.
This is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth.
It's an alarming choice for a man who has often struggled to unequivocally denounce white supremacists. You'll recall these moments.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Those words have power. They have meaning. And when Donald Trump speaks, the world listens. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists certainly listen. So why can't he denounce them? Why can't he reject their support?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
What's your response to Donald Trump saying she should be fired, that Liz Cheney should be fired upon? He keeps speaking in these very extreme terms about the potential dangers to the country if he doesn't win in November. He's used words like bloodbath.
And CNN's doing great because of people like Acosta. Wait, Michael says there's a business update on CNN. CNBC. CNN to lay off hundreds of employees as post-inauguration transformation begins, sources says. It's not Fox News. By the way, thank you to my friend Reed Harris from the UFC. He's watching the show live. He says he sent me a picture of a karate man on my phone. Well, he sent me another picture of me and Trump at the UFC. Thank you, Reed, so much. So in honor of Reed Harris, he loves Jasmine doesn't know Karate Man yet, but ladies and gentlemen, it's Dan Bongino's favorite thing to do because Karate Man. Sometimes they throw in the leg. When I'm really in a mood, for those of you who don't know, the various iterations of the Karate Man, I go side kick 2. Sometimes I pull an adductor muscle in the hip in the process, but Reed, for you, Karate Man, because the Karate Man is here. And when I whip out Karate Man, you know someone in the left is on trouble. So Reed, that was for you. Thank you for taking care of us at the UFC. And thank you for the awesome Venom clothes, by the way. He sent me a whole boatload of Venom clothes. So Venom makes some cool stuff. He gave me this white hoodie. He's like, will you just stay on topic? I can't, folks. It's this serious. I have like serious clinical like ADHD. Jasmine's like, this was too much. I'm here the first day. If she quits tomorrow, I just want you to know it was great having her. We loved you. It was fantastic. Thanks for working here. I got to go because I got to do the radio show and wash this crappy makeup off my face, which I hate. Please, I'm begging you on bended knee for this.
Governor, thanks a lot for coming on.
Great to be here.
So you run this big, complex state filled with all kinds of different people competing political interests at a time of real intensity in the country. What have you learned from that? What are the takeaways from it?
Well, I think leadership matters, and willingness to take decisive, strong action without being worried about your own shadow really makes a difference. I'll talk about the first part of my term and then more recently with COVID. When I became governor, I fired Scott Israel, the sheriff of Broward County, who had mishandled the Parkland massacre a year before. I fired Susan Booker, the Palm Beach County supervisor of elections, who had botched a number of elections, and then also got Brenda Snipes from Broward County to resign. So those were very quick, decisive actions, and the results were, well, at least with the elections, we had one of the smoothest elections in the country in 2020. People at the time, it was considered controversial, but it was the right thing to do. Fast forward to COVID. I had to make a lot of decisions that cut against the grain of conventional elite opinion, certainly the media. We took incoming every single day, but you make the decisions, you know why you're doing it, you stand your ground, and now we're in a situation where March of 2021, states wish they could have had Florida's performance. I mean, our unemployment rate is 4.8%. States like California are 9%. Our COVID mortality is less than the national average, even though we have the oldest population in the country. And we've had schools open, one of only 3 or 4 states in the country where 100% of our parents have access to in-person education. And so we got the big things right. In the moment, there was a lot of people that were throwing stones at us, but take the action, stand your ground, and hold the line.
So you went to Harvard, you went to Yale, you were a naval officer, you served in Congress for 6 years. You've certainly been around a lot of elite institutions. You ignored them as they criticized you.
Of course, yes.
Why?
First of all, when I first went to Yale, I grew up in Florida.
Yeah.
I was a blue-collar kid. I showed up my first day in jean shorts and a T-shirt, because that's what we wore on the west coast of Florida. Was a major culture shock. That was not something that was received very warmly, and I never quite fit in there, and it was a total culture shock to me, and I really rebelled against the leftist orthodoxy that I saw on that campus, and then when I see those in other institutions, and so I've always had a really strong distrust of some of the elites in American society, because I think they've gotten a lot of things wrong over the years. And so that was actually natural. I don't seek the approval of elites. I got elected by people here in Florida. Those are the folks that I was elected to serve. And I don't really care what people in the Beltway or in New York City think about what we're doing in Florida.
It's just interesting, though, because people who, you see it a lot, people come from some little town out in the provinces, and they show up at a place like Yale or Harvard Law School, or they become a naval officer, which I think is maybe not that different. It is an elite institution. And they decide, this is the world I really love. These are the values that I believe. It sounds like you came away from your experiences more contemptuous.
Yeah, and appreciate where I came from, quite frankly. I mean, I remember going to Yale, sitting in class. I had never heard anybody criticize America. Like everything was about how bad America was in any of these classes. I never heard anybody, I go to church, I never heard anyone criticize God or Christian. And it was also, Yale's motto is for God, for country, for Yale. They hated God, they hated the country, and they obviously had a weird way about going their institution. So seeing that was really eye-opening. And I realized very early on, this is not quite where I personally fit in.
What were the people impressive?
It's interesting because
very hard to get into those schools.
But here's what I would say. There are people that were smart for sure. But if you think you're smarter than you are, you got some problems. Even if you are really smart, and I think what I saw was people who were smart but tended to think they were a lot smarter and knew a lot more than they really did. And I think that there's a lot of danger in that. So I kind of learned early on, you got to have a little bit of humility. I mean, you want to be confident in what you believe and what you think, but there's always more information out there, and be careful of getting over your skis. And I think that has served me well.
Do you have any friends from school still?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Why'd you go into politics?
Well, it's interesting. I got into politics largely because of what Barack Obama was doing. So I got elected to Congress in 2012. I had written a book, and I didn't think it was going to lead to a congressional run. The book was read by about a dozen people, but it was nevertheless a book.
But they were avid fans.
Yeah, they were. And so criticizing Obama, his ideology, how that was really taking us in a direction I think the founders would not have intended. And it's interesting now, though, looking back on what I was criticizing Obama, he was a piker compared to what this woke left is doing now. I mean, back then, I always believed some of the stuff we see at our universities on campus, okay, once you get into the real world, none of that's going to fly. And I think that was probably true even a decade ago. Now, all that nonsense on the universities, that's running key institutions in our country, corporations, media, all these other things. And so I look back at my criticism of that, and in some ways it's kind of quaint, because I think a lot of the threats that we face are much, much more significant to people who think like you and me than they were 10 or 15 years ago.
But we set up a system, it seems to me, where you take the smartest kids in the country, you identify them with standardized testing, and you funnel them into a small number of institutions, and you train them, in effect, for leadership. It's like what Sandhurst used to, do for the British Empire. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, those are our leaders. And so if they're being taught things that are destructive, why wouldn't the rest of our institutions become destructive?
No, I think there's some truth to that. Although I could tell you, I think their role as really focusing on actual leadership has been probably that train left the station a long time ago.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just in terms of if you go back to World War II, I mean, people from Harvard and Yale, they were serving in the war as officers. I mean, they were leading parts of that. Now the people that are coming out, when I was at Harvard, I was the only person in my class to be commissioned in the military, out of 550 people. I think if we were 50 years earlier at a time of war, it would have been a little bit different. So you're not really producing people who are leaders, I think, in the sense of the founding fathers would have viewed it. You're really, I think, they're training people to have certain ideology and to carry a certain ideology into these institutions. And I think that, that's something the chickens are coming home to roost on a lot of this right now in a way that I don't think I would have said 10 or 15 years ago.
What does your classmates want out of it? So you go to school with all these high achievers, for 7 years. And what did they wind up doing? What do they want out of life, do you think?
It's interesting. I think a lot of them ended up just going into kind of some of the standard finance institutions, obviously with law, some of the elite law firms. I mean, I still think that's the dominant strand of folks who do that. You have others. I mean, I have friends who've served in politics. I have some friends who ended up going into the military. I have friends who've done well in law. I have some friends who've been entrepreneurs. So there's been a variety of stuff. But I think kind of the dominant cohort goes from those institutions to just a handful of cities, usually New York or San Francisco, Los Angeles, maybe Boston, and serve in a lot of the similar functions.
So the institutions they've gone into now reflect the politics of those campuses.
I think
so. The poison that is brewing on these campuses has infected the entire country, and we're all living with the results of that. What should we do about that?
It's interesting. I mean, I did a proposal yesterday in Florida about civics education to try to get this really front and center, to understand what America was founded on and understand how those principles have animated our history. But I said, we are not allowing critical race theory to be a part of this. Teaching kids to hate their country, teaching kids to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer dollars. And so we're drawing a hard line in the sand here in the state of Florida in our K through 12 system. And I think that that's important because, look, if you give people kind of the facts and you educate them on some of the core principles, if they go into a university system, I think they can probably make sense of what's really true and what's not. I think one of the problems has been we've been graduating kids out of high school who literally have not been given any information about what our country stands for or any of the principles that it was founded upon. So we're trying to do something about that in the state of Florida, and I think we're going to end up having some success.
So if you allow schools to teach kids openly racist ideas, like one race is better than another, which I thought we rejected, it shouldn't surprise you that the country falls apart. So, who would push back against your ban on that?
Well, I think some of the people, obviously, who are invested in that kind of thinking. And so you see some of it in Florida, you see some of it nationally where people are criticizing. What they'll try to say is, this is, remember in the presidential debate when Trump had taken a hard line against this, and it was categorized by the moderator as sensitivity training. That's a joke. It's not sensitivity training.
It's pretty insensitive.
Exactly. It's actively teaching to dislike someone based on the color of their skin. And so I think being honest about what it is, making sure parents are informed about it, and then letting them know we're not going to allow it in Florida, is a really big deal. I think some parents, when they see it, I think most of them are like, this isn't for us. But I think a lot of them really aren't sure what all this stuff is. And so we can't let the left try to act like this is some benign thing that they're just doing to do a little bit of diversity training.
Yeah, Trump, for all his good qualities, could never really explain it. He used about 3 adjectives over and over. It's bad, it's bad. True, but why is it bad? I think parents who confront it, of all ethnic backgrounds and of all political ideologies, kind of know this is really poison.
And let's just be honest about who is pushing this. These are white, progressive leftists that are pushing this. That's 100% of where this is coming from. This is not popular in most other communities in the United States, including in the African American community.
Right.
And so we just got to be honest about that. And I don't want our kids to be educated based on the whims of these upper class credentialed left-wing progressives.
So you see them as the wellspring of this stuff?
Yes.
So you don't have huge populations of those kind of people in Florida. There's some, but not a ton. Do you think that's part of the reason you didn't have the rioting that a lot of other places had?
It may have been, but I think we took a hard line on it. I called up the National Guard immediately. I said, we are not going to be having any of the rioting. We had National Guard. I had highway patrol teams ready to go. If they tried to take over a road, we went in there and made sure the road was operational. So we took it very seriously in a way that I think some of these other states just did not. And quite frankly, we had some local officials who did a good job. I mean, Carlos Jimenez is now a congressman.
Yeah.
He was the mayor of Miami-Dade County. I remember calling him. I said, Carlos, we can't let this happen here. He's like, don't worry. He's like, I remember when they had the riots in the 80s here. We're not going to do it. He was right there. You know, so we were all working together to say, we're not going to allow this to happen here. So I think there may have been, maybe Florida's not quite as suited for it. There may be some truth. But I think it's how serious we were about it really did make an important difference.
How important do you think that is, the fact that there wasn't widespread rioting in the state, to people's decision to move here? You've seen a lot of people move here.
It's definitely been a factor, for sure. And I also think the fact that Florida wasn't locked down like these other states, I think the lockdowns, you know, provided an impetus to be able, because people need an outlet to do things. And so I think some of these states like Minnesota, California, I think the fact that they were locked down and had the opportunity to go out and do stuff, I think that added fuel to the fire of what was going on. So I think the fact that we took a hard line on that, people understood Florida as a law and order state, but also that we were open, I think has been a huge factor in people moving to Florida.
So what, obviously you've had a lot of successes, you're a very famous governor. What didn't go according to plan? How did you screw up in retrospect?
Well, I think early on, you know, I was just hungry for data. And so I was looking at South Korea, Italy, and I'm trying to make sense of this virus. It seemed to me that this was something that was risky for elderly people.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like there was much risk in people, not just kids, but even people who were in reasonably good health, who were, say, under 50. But I didn't really have the proof of that in Florida. So when they did the 15 days to slow the spread and some of that stuff, you know, we followed that. Whereas I think if I had more data, I would have had the ability to say, wait a minute, you know, why would we need to, you know, close a gym for 2 weeks? I mean, these are younger people going to work out. If you're healthy, you're going to end up dealing with the virus better. And so I think that it took me a few weeks, March and into April, to get enough data to say, okay, you know, we're not doing Fauciism. You know, we're going to make sure our state's open. We're going to get the kids back into school, and we'll just focus our protection on elderly people who are the ones that are at risk.
So
for
you've
this.
taken all this crap for not locking down. You're saying, in retrospect, you wish you'd locked down less?
Even some of the restrictions we did, I think, were ineffective. And yeah, this was what was being recommended at the time by the White House task force. Well, they recommended doing restaurants at takeout. They recommended suspending the gyms. And I don't think that those worked. And so once I figured that out, and one of the big ones that doesn't get talked about, suspending elective procedures at hospitals, because they said first that there was going to be hospital overflow. And I said, I'm not sure about that. They said, we're running out of PPE. They have elective procedures. You're going to run out of all this stuff. So I'm like, all right. So we actually, I think every state in the country suspended these elected procedures at hospitals. And we did it for about 4 weeks. And I'm like, the hospitals are half empty. We got to get this back. So we turned it on. So basically, anytime I did something based on, I think, an elite recommendation, if the data didn't follow that, you know, I made sure I reversed course.
What do you think this is about? What these lockdowns, you know, you got to think that some of them are driven by genuine anxiety about the virus and the effect it can have. But then you see measures remain in place despite mountains of scientific data. So you have to ask, what is the motive here? What do you think it is?
Well, I think that initially it was primarily driven by panic and fear. And I think some of these elites, these public health folks, there were these models being woven around, which all of them, by the way, were garbage. Neil Ferguson's model in Imperial College garbage. The hospital models that Fauci used, garbage about hospital overflow. But nevertheless, they believed that. So they thought if they didn't take drastic measures, that we'd have 100,000 people in like New York that had no hospital beds. So I understand why you think that was...
So there were mistakes made in good faith.
I think a lot of it was based on that. The problem is they've never been willing to admit that they were wrong about this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with it, with admitting, that you got things like, hey, I didn't have all the information. We did some things. I think it's probably better to maybe go in a different direction. Instead, they remain wedded in this lockdown frenzy. And I think some of these politicians, they put themselves out early as the savior of the public. We're controlling the virus with these draconian measures. And so if they were ever to lift them and the virus didn't then resurge, then people are going to say, well, wait a minute, you don't have the measures, the virus isn't coming back. Well, did we really need to do this from the beginning? I mean, for example, people point to Florida in a lot of these states now and say, wait a minute, California, you look at the last 6 months, California's done worse than Florida in every metric per capita, and yet Florida's completely open, and California's been locked down. How do you account for that? It's very difficult to account for it, but I think a lot of the folks who are so invested in lockdowns, they just don't want to admit they were wrong. They don't want to admit that some of the problems that they caused were caused in error.
But I mean, people are pretty understanding. Human beings make mistakes. If you continue to lie about evidence that everyone can read on the internet, you beclown yourself, you humiliate yourself.
Well, I think so, but you've probably seen some of these numbers about how certain segments of the population view the danger of the virus. And there's certain segments of our population, while the virus is serious, they way overestimate the danger, particularly to normal, healthy adults who are, say, under 50. They overestimate the number of people that would be hospitalized. There's a plurality, I think, of liberals that believe, or Democrats that believe, the hospitalization rate for people infected by COVID is 50% or more in a recent survey. And it's really about, of cases, it's like 2 or 3%. Of all infections, it's probably even 1%. And so when you see that, there's some of those folks who still believe the March of 2020 hysteria that was there, and they just haven't looked at that. And I think that's a function of what type of media you consume, some of the people that you talk to. But it's interesting because I think in Florida, see, one of the things what I didn't like about seeing these other places locked down is, yes, we focus on Newsom locks down this restaurant. That's bad for the restaurant, bad for the workers. Sure. But I think the average person, if they see stuff closed, I think that affects just the average person. It casts a pall over society when you see some of these things. And when things are open, I think people just feel better. They feel actually safer because they see other people going around and living their lives. And I mean, in Florida, people take reasonable precautions. But, we give them the information and let them make the decisions for themselves. We're not beating them over the head every day with fines and penalties.
It does seem like there is intent behind some of the misleading statements that you're hearing from political figures. And I think it's making people paranoid. But I'm interested to know whether you think they're justified in being paranoid. I mean, if you crack down on the population the way that we're watching now, crack down on speech, try to disarm the population, scream at people, and then keep them indoors and off balance with COVID regulations that aren't justified by science, like, what are you doing exactly? Like, how much of this is designed to increase the political power of the people doing it, do you believe?
Well, I would say that when you're clearly advocating things which have not been justified on the basis of evidence, I think people are right to ask why. I mean, why be wedded to some of these things when what you said 6 or 9 months ago clearly has not come to pass? I mean, you said, for example, if a state like Florida was open, it'd be this unmitigated disaster. You've said if everyone wore masks 9 months ago, the pandemic would end in 6 or 8 weeks. And yet none of that stuff has ever happened. So why aren't you reevaluating it? And to me, if they're not willing to reevaluate it and admit they were wrong, that to me is that this is more about ideology. Some of it is, I'm not going to say benign, but like I think some of these public health people, they had been ignored for their whole career up until this point. Now all of a sudden, man, you get booked on CNN. Well, guess what? If you go on CNN and say, yeah, we've turned the corner, things are good, we're going to be fine, you ain't going to get booked on CNN again.
That's right.
If you go on and say, the apocalypse is right around the corner, and you up the fear factor, you're going to get an invitation back. So some of it, I think, with some of these public health people is about them, about their relevance, and really not wanting to let go, because the minute that they let go, then we end up in a situation where they will return to obscurity.
Do you ever wonder where it's going? I mean, this country is much less free than it was a year ago. It's not recognizable from the country it was 5 years ago. So extrapolate forward, where are we in 5 years? Seriously, like what does it look like?
If you go back to March of 2020, I mean, the number of people that were totally willing to just say, close churches, do all this, whatever, because they were really fearful. I mean, honestly, I was shocked at that.
I was too.
And I think part of it was they weren't having the data presented to them in a way that was accurate. But to see that was really, really jarring. And, you know, you go back, I mean, my election in 2018 was a bit important election for Florida for governor, two very contrasting candidates. But none of us thought that there'd necessarily be a pandemic. But if you would have told me there will be a pandemic when you're governor, I would not have ever imagined that would mean a governor can lock everyone in their home for a year and close schools for a year. It would never have occurred to me that you would have. So governors have seized powers that I don't think are legitimate. And one of the failures in all this, I think, has been our courts, because the courts did not want to mess with this at first. They just wanted to have hands off, because I think they feared if they were to rule something unlawful and then something later happened, then they would be blamed. So they took a real hands-off approach on this for months and months and allowed a lot of these restrictions to really take hold. Now you've seen the Supreme Court do some stuff, but man, I mean, just think about it. You're in California, you can't go to church for a year in some of these places. Your kids have been locked out of school for a year, and there's no effective recourse. I think it's a real problem.
I mean, at some point, do people disobey? I mean, is there and no one wants to see that, of course, because you want order and you want laws to matter. But at some point, do people say, none of these regulations have been passed by any Democratic legislature? The democratic process has never really entered into this, and no, I'm not going to follow orders anymore.
And what we're doing in Florida is I've asked the legislature, cabin this stuff, because for me, look, I didn't abuse, but we have local governments that have done stuff that I've had to rein in. I mean, they had restrictions that I had to override because they were inhibiting our ability to put people back to work, get the kids in school, this stuff. So I think you need to do some legislative rollback and make it very clear. So I believe you shouldn't be able to close a business like this. I just don't think it's justifiable. Put out the information. Let people know if something like this is here, but then let people make those decisions. Instead, we're in a situation where some of these states have closed certain businesses for over a year at this point. How do you get your life back? Should your life and your entire livelihood and your entire liberty lie in the hand of the whim of one person, some governor that may not know what the hell he's doing? That's not the way our system was designed.
When does this end? Exactly. When do we declare victory over this, or declare a higher tolerance for the risk associated with it, and just say, we're going back to 2019? Sorry.
Well, I can tell you in Florida, we've got a big UFC fight happening, full capacity indoors at the end of April. We've got WrestleMania in April in Tampa. We're going to really do it. So our view here is you can make these decisions for yourself. We think that you should be able to do. I was walking down the street the other day. Someone came up to me, Governor, thank you for bringing live music back. We're one of the few states where you have live music now. So I think it's not going to be an even kind of return to normal. And in fact, if you talk to people that visit Florida from lockdown states, they will say it's almost like being in another country.
Yes.
If you go from Florida to Massachusetts. There are people, because people still got to do business and stuff. There are people who will want to do a business deal. They're both in Illinois. They will fly to Florida so that they can have dinner and talk business and come to an agreement, and then they both fly back to Illinois. I mean, that's what's happening in this country. It's insane.
It certainly is. And people who like to live under the boot of fascism will stay in their collapsing states, and people who don't will move to places like Florida. But over time, how does a country like that hang together? You said it's almost like a separate country. I think that's exactly right. I mean, is that a workable model for a union, say, 50 years from now?
I honestly thought after the election that Biden and the Dems would want to move forward to get. I mean, I honestly did, because, okay, you used it against Trump, you demagogued it, okay, you got in there, so let's get the country moving again. And man, there's resistance to doing that. I mean, these schools, They're not going back in some of these places for this school year for sure. So then you're looking at the fall, but even they're saying with the fall, well, all the kids need to be vaccinated, even though the kids have been proven not to be at risk or be spreaders in any significant way. And so it is not ending anytime soon in some parts of this country. And I think
what
it's a
should
huge.
parents say to that? If someone says your 7-year-old must be vaccinated, what do you say?
No vaccine mandates. In Florida, we are making it available for people. No mandate for anybody, and we're also not going to allow any vaccine passports. The idea that you have to show proof of receiving a vaccine to be able to participate in society, I think that's anathema.
But you just pointed out that kids are not generally susceptible to the virus. They don't tend to pass it on to anyone. The vaccine, which seems like a godsend, is also pretty new, and we don't know that much about it. Like, should parents be eager to get their 7-year-old, absent other factors, vaccinated?
So I have a 4-year-old daughter. My son's going to be 3. My daughter's going to be 1 at the end of this month. We're not going to vaccinate the kids for COVID simply because they're at incredibly low risk.
Right.
And they're not at any risk really to spread it to us. And quite frankly, I'm at low risk. My wife's at low risk. I'm 42. It's fine. And so we won't do it for kids. Now, it's not approved for kids yet. They're doing different types of trials. But this is less dangerous for kids than seasonal influenza. That's just the fact. If you look in Florida over this winter, our hospital admissions for pediatric respiratory admissions fell off a cliff compared to what they were in previous flu seasons. And so, to me, we should embrace that. We should be thankful for that. I mean, imagine if COVID was the opposite and attacked kids in particular. I mean, I think a lot of us parents, we'd be really, really concerned about that. But the data is clear, the evidence is clear, and I think for school districts to go down the road of saying you have to mandate that these kids get vaccinated for COVID, I don't think that's based on good science, and it certainly, I think, would be a violation of people's freedoms.
What do you read for news?
It's interesting. There's different sites that I think have like the clips on them, and I have a bunch of different. But I read. We get the Wall Street Journal, but most of what I'm reading are sites that are aggregating different things.
Right.
And so you have. I used to read Judge Report. I don't read that anymore because it's gone off the deep end. So you got things like Citizen Free Press. You have. You have Breitbart. You have. Some of these populist sites I think are doing really, really good. And then I read a lot of clips for different things that are going on in Florida, which are just basically aggregated from around the state.
Is that the first thing you do in the morning?
Usually, but I'll thumb through at night and then do whatever, and I try to get a workout in the morning. So we'll, and then obviously I have a lot of firsthand material that I get presented with in the morning, and so we focus a lot on that.
I meant for national news, right?
Yeah.
You're having all kinds of numbers from the state of Florida. Where do you think the media go at this point? I mean, you said most people who move here from other places are ignoring the media coverage of Florida because they assume it's dishonest, which I think it is. But is that sustainable? Can you have a country where nobody believes the news media?
I think it's a big problem. I mean, if you look, the kind of the corporate media has always had, a liberal bias.
Right.
But if you go back 20, 30 years, it would always be through a liberal prism. But they wouldn't just do some of the stuff that they do now. They are actively partisan. And not only that, it's all about crafting a narrative, regardless of the facts. And so if there's a fact that's inconvenient to the narrative, they'll smother the fact. They'll ignore the fact in order to be able to continue with the narrative. I mean, you think about some of the stuff that's been put out since Trump's been president. Russia collusion, false. Jussie Smollett, false. Some of the stuff they tried to accuse, like Don Jr. of doing this or that, Cohen and Prague. All these bombshells turned out to be false. The phone call that Trump supposedly had with Georgia, where they fabricated the quotes. Those aren't even real quotes. And so I think it's a big problem for a democracy. Part of it, there's no accountability for the corporate press. I mean, they can do this with impunity, and no one really holds them accountable. I think their model is kind of smear their opponents for clicks. And I think that worked very well for them when Trump was president, because they were really playing to an enraged left-wing base. Well, now that we're in a different environment, you see the ratings going down. I don't know how the websites are doing, but I would imagine the traffic on those are down as well. So they got to figure out what they're going to do. maybe it's attacking you, or maybe it's attacking me, or some of the kind of the directions that they go. I think they want to find something to be able to do. But I think it's way worse than it was 10, 15 years ago.
So what does it mean for you? You're running a state. If the Orlando Sentinel or the Tampa Tribune or whatever, St. Petersburg paper, attacks you, do you, sincere question, do you care?
No.
You don't care at all?
No.
Does it affect your life in any way? Does it move numbers? Does it convince people not to vote for you? Does it make it harder to get things through the legislature? Is it relevant?
So I think what it does is it probably hardens people that are not inclined to support someone like me with my philosophy or whatnot. But in terms of our base, they don't believe these newspapers anymore. They just assume there's an agenda behind it. And so in some ways, it can make it a little bit more difficult, someone me, because I know the narrative is going to, in some ways, be hostile. If I do something good, they're going to try to do it in a way that makes it seem not as good. But on the flip side of that, if I really were to screw up, my voters wouldn't believe the paper if they printed it anyway. So they've lost a lot of credibility, and I think they've lost the ability to really inform people who are just looking for information. So they're playing to more of a base. They become more overtly partisan, and I think the influence is more narrowed.
You married someone in the media, now that I think about it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, and it's not just because my wife. The local news is probably the fairest compared to the national media. I mean, obviously we have some good outlets like Fox that are fine, but and then the newspapers, I think, have become very partisan. I think the local news, you go, you do something, they'll put what you did that day, and they can ask me questions. That's fine, but that's all fair game. So what my wife did. And she also has insights, and I mean they're trying to turn around packages, they're trying to turn around stories every day as reporters, and so they really want the content. So I think that's been much better in terms of doing that. And I also think, quite frankly, local TV has way more influence than the newspapers do now. I mean, the newspaper circulations have just shrunk dramatically. I mean, some of these major areas of Florida, the circulations are probably a fraction of what they used to be. Whereas there's still a lot of people that want news. They'll just turn on the 6 o'clock news. So you still have that, and I think that they do try to hold an audience, and I think that they know if they were to become overtly partisan like some of the newspapers, that they'd probably hemorrhage viewers.
I got to ask you, there's this kind of weird interlude in your bio, which is this, ascent, all these impressive achievements, but then you take a year and you teach history at a boarding school. Why'd you do that?
And coach baseball.
Yeah. Oh, is that why you did it?
Yeah, I coached baseball. So, I think part of it was I'd played baseball my whole life. I played 4 years in college. I wasn't going to make a living at it. And I think part of it was, I didn't quite want to just walk away from baseball in some respects. I mean, I knew that I needed to kind of get on. So it gave me an opportunity to kind of still be involved with the game. And at that point, I was trying to figure out what I would do. I mean, I thought about potentially trying to go into maybe a front office type of situation at the time in baseball, maybe go to law school and then maybe use that as a springboard to get in.
So you really loved it.
Yeah, I did. And then just being able to do college, I think I worked harder in college. I mean, I worked hard as governor. I worked hard in the military, all this stuff. But I mean, I had played sports, which, you're training all the time. I'm studying and trying to do the best I can. And then I'm also working to help put myself through to make the odds and ends meet. And I just remember being really tired.
What did you do for work?
Anything imaginable. I was known as the most employable guy at Yale. Literally, people would call me, can you get a couple guys together? I got to put up fences, at the Yale Bowl, or I got to move pipes, or I got to do anything. So I did just about anything. I was one of the ball boys for the soccer team. Like when they'd kick a ball out of bounds, me and my buddies would go grab it and then put it back. Anything under the sun you could think about. And I'm making whatever, $6, $7, $8 an hour doing this, but I'm filling in as much as I can trying to do it. So there was I was a little bit tired, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need to gather a little bit. Maybe coaching will be fun. So we did it. But then I knew, I had good marks and I had good scores. So I knew if I wanted to go to law school, I'd be able to do it.
What are you going to do next?
Well, we got we're in the midst of our legislative session right now. we're going to have a lot to do. I mean, we have big tech. We're the only state really going after big tech. We're also doing some anti-Communist Party of China for some of the foreign influence, like these Confucius Institutes and things like that. Our budget's very healthy because our economy's doing good. So we've got a lot of victories we need to get there. And then we'll have the legislative session in January. And then I'm up again for the re-election in 2022. So we'll be focusing on that. And I think we're going to do really well.
If you somehow got appointed president this afternoon, what would your priorities be if you're running the country rather than just a state?
Well, I would secure the border, first of all. I mean, I think when you're in these positions, things happen on your watch. I mean, it's not like you control everything, but this is created because of what Biden did.
Yes.
And so you got to fix that. Trump had it right, so you got to do that. I would also do more. I mean, we banned sanctuary cities in Florida when I became governor. We did E-Verify for the first time ever, fought the business lobby to do that. I would fight for those policies on the federal level as well, because we've got to get this immigration situation under control. It's not good for the country to have this going on all the time. Also understand, looking at what President Trump had to deal with, this bureaucracy of ours. There's a lot of problems in that, and I think you need to be able to bring accountability to people in the bureaucracy. I mean, if Donald Trump's elected president, he tries to do policy and the bureaucracy tells him to go fly a kite, that's not representative government. And I think we've allowed this to fester for years and years, and I think it's at the point now where even if a Republican wins the election, the other party still maintains control of the apparatus of the executive branch. And that can't be the way this goes. You go in, you have the ability to implement the agenda.
How could a Republican ever win a national election again with the changes they're putting in place?
Well, I don't think those changes are going to pass muster. I mean, in Florida, we would not abide by this H.R. 1. I think it's unconstitutional. We've proven we can run elections well. So we're going to continue doing what we're doing.
What do you mean you wouldn't abide by it?
I think it's unconstitutional. I mean, I don't think you can't come in and order me to conduct state elections in ways. Now, they're going to say, well, the federal elections you can do or whatever, but it would immediately be challenged in court. But I think our position would be it's flatly unconstitutional.
So the Democratic leadership of the Congress just moved thousands of armed federal troops into the Capitol as a statement that we're in charge now. So, I mean, does that concern you that the ruling party would use the military to shore up its political power? What does that portend for the future?
It's interesting. We at the very beginning of this, we had a request, which we typically get from time to time, and we almost always fulfill these requests. Hey, we need troops for this, for this. So we sent people. And then after a couple days, we saw what this was all about, this half-cocked mission. They're sleeping on the floor. So I pulled them out. So my guys were there for a few days. And I was like, well, they're probably going to be there another week or so, but out of principle, we got to bring back. They're still there, and they're going to be there. So I think it's a big problem when you have the fencing around the Capitol.
Well, what kind of precedent does it set?
Yeah,
you can just call out the army or the reserves to shore up your position.
I think what they're doing too, though, is they want to use this January 6th and try to basically politicize it. And they've equated it to 9/11 even. And so I think that they want it to be a symbol of the Capitol is under siege. We're having to work in this environment where they need to be sent home. The fence needs to come down, and everything will end up being fine.
What do you think, kind of big picture, you're obviously a smart person, what do you think, it does seem like the people who run the country, our professional class, kind of lost faith in the American project. They don't really believe in what their forefathers believed at all about the decency of America, the basic principles that undergird it and all that. How did that happen exactly?
Well, I think part of it is some of the stuff we talked about earlier about the education system and some of the people coming. But I also think that you have people in charge now. I mean, you look what they're doing. They're going to maybe overturn this Iowa election. You have a Republican that won, very narrow margin. She's seated, and they may overturn it. H.R. 1 is really just trying to guarantee that Democrats always run the country. So at some point along the line, I think with the left-wing elite, they thought that a Republican getting elected is just frankly illegitimate, and that they have a right to rule. And so I do think they reject the founding principles as well. But I think it's an entitlement that they think they're the ruling class. And how dare someone challenge them, particularly someone like a Donald Trump, which caused them to light their hair on fire. So it's a different mindset than maybe the mindset of the people that came in with like Jack Kennedy in like 1961, for example.
I would say very different. It's been interesting to watch you as governor because one of the things that you talk about, you rarely hear Republicans talk about, and that's the state of the natural environment, water quality, for example. Why do you talk about that, and do you see that as part of conservatism moving forward? I
think so. I mean, so what I had to do, I'm in a situation where I have the best boating, fishing in the world, but that's threatened if you have problems with your water resources and your water infrastructure. And we had a situation where a lot of the progress was being upheld by these massive sugar companies. And so I came in and was really the first governor in a long time to be willing to break that up and to say, you know what, they're not going to set the policy anymore. We're going to set the policy. We've got to do some things to make sure, that we're not discharging water from Lake Okeechobee into our rivers, and basically it hurts this coast. It hurts these coasts. We need to replenish the Everglades, get it down to Florida Bay. Everyone wins when you do that. And so for us, it's really consistent with our way of life as Floridians because people like to be outdoors. It's really important for our economy. It's important for property value. So it touches a lot of different things. It's not like, oh, we can never do something in some place that no one ever goes to or anything like that. No, the Floridians enjoy this environment, and I think we have a responsibility to God to leave it better than we found it.
But, I mean, Republicans are for big sugar companies and big every kind of company. I mean, that's just kind of what we know, right? It's the corporate party. You're willing to say something different. Do you think that the future for Republicans will be less tied to corporate values?
Well, I think it has to be. I mean, if you look at these, well, first of all, with sugar, I was one of a handful, I think it was me and two others out of 27 congressmen to vote against sugar subsidies from Florida. And that's all the Democrats voted for the subsidy. So it's not just the Republicans on that issue. It really is bipartisan. The larger issue of kind of corporate America, look, if they're going to virtue signal, if they're going to engage in this woke type of stuff, if they're going to try to put a thumb on the scale into state and federal politics, that's something that we have to consider. And so one of the things that bugs me is they'll virtue signal on some of this stuff. They know the media will love it and give them praise. Meanwhile, they're engaging in horrific business practices overseas and doing all this stuff. So some of this is very dishonest. It's like a Chewbacca defense to divert from some of the things that they're doing. But we cannot be wedded to corporate America, both in terms of, I think, solid economic policy. That's really not, I think, what traditional conservatism really should be about. I think the D.C. Republican Party just kind of naturally would fall into being a corporatist party. But I don't think that was Reagan's vision. I don't think that was Coolidge's vision and some of these other folks. But then we also have to understand, these companies are standing for values that really are not middle America's values. And so why would we want to put them in the driver's seat of national policy? So yes, it's big tech. Yes, it's some of these other companies. But I mean, even like, you see what like Coca-Cola is doing with critical race theory. I mean, some of this stuff is just absolutely insane.
Why isn't this more obvious to other Republican office holders? I mean, you just saw the other day a Republican governor, a pretty solid conservative, basically take the side of big companies against her own state, against her own voters, against her own legislature, which is controlled by Republicans. Is that just reflex? I mean, have people not sort of paid attention for the last few years? Or why is that happening?
It may be some of that. I mean, I think that some folks may fear, like, if you take a strong stand, how are these companies going to react? I flip that on its head and say, well, wait a minute. You're telling me that I shouldn't stand for the right thing because a company may then try to punish us? So what you're saying is the company should run the state. I don't think that that's what most voters want. They don't want these big companies running the state. So we, and look, we're in a good situation in Florida because we have a massive market. So it's a little easier for me to say, hey, we need big tech accountability because there's billions and billions of dollars in this state. I mean, people are going to service this market one way or another.
Do you worry about a state like Texas, which has just been filled with refugees from California, upscale refugees, bringing a lot of money, but also bringing their values? Like, what does that mean for the future of Texas, and how do you think about that as you think about the future of Florida?
Well, I think if you look in Texas with Austin, they bring these tech companies, some of these other companies, and I think the executives understand why they're moving to Texas, but I think a lot of the employees, they do the same ideology they had in California. So a place like Austin, I mean, it's kind of like a mini San Francisco with the homelessness and some of these problems. So they are repeating the policies and reproducing those policies in a different state. And I think that definitely has made Texas more competitive. I think Florida's been a little bit different. I mean, in a couple respects, some of the industries that we're doing really well on are a little bit different than those California-based companies. I mean, we're doing really well on space and aviation. And there's a lot of blue-collar jobs that go with that. We're doing well with financial services, which I still think, even though some of it's a lot of it in the Northeast, I still think leans more right than left. And then we're really working hard on manufacturing. We're doing a lot with vocational education. I say, you do not need to go to college to be successful. If you want to, fine. That's where your dreams take you. But man, we've got ability for these people can make $100,000 a year in their 20s if they learn a trade. And then I think we tend to get people who are kind of retiring to Florida because they appreciate the environment that we have. So I think the migration is just different than what we've seen in Texas. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, Florida was one of the states where Trump did better than he did in 2016. He did 3 times the margin in Florida in 2020 than he did in 2016, even though in a lot of these other states the margin was a little bit less. So I think that's an indication that I think our migration patterns are a little different politically than Texas.
Who are your heroes? Who do you think of as genuinely impressive as a model for your behavior politically and in life?
Well, I think the greatest public servant that's active today is Clarence Thomas. I think part of it is, I mean, he sets the standard. What he went through, just that ridiculously unfair treatment, and he stood strong through that. I think a lot of people would have wilted. But he gets in there and he does the right thing. He does not give a rip what the Washington Post or the New York or any of that think. I mean, he's going to show true north time and time again. And if you look at these decisions when they come out of the court, you ask, where's Thomas? And 99-point-something%, wherever he is the direction that you want to go. And I think obviously he's got an incredible life story from his beginnings in Pinpoint, Georgia, segregated South. But then the fact that he took from that a love of America. If anyone should not like America, it should be someone like Clarence Thomas. But yet the people that don't like America tend to be the people that have had everything handed to them. And so here he was. He actually had his family, his grandfather struggled. He had to do it. But what he came to understand is it's a great country based on great principles. And we've done a lot of things to make life better for people. And when there's injustices, you can correct them. So I think he's a model. Look, if he had the ideology of the ruling class, he'd probably be on the $10 bill right now for his life story. But he's gone another way. He knew that wouldn't lead to some of the accolades in elite society. But I think he's doing it because he believes in the Constitution.
Who do you listen to? I mean, you got to make all these decisions. Who do you consult? Whose opinion do you take seriously in your life?
So, I mean, my best friend's my wife.
Yes, famously.
She's a great spouse, a great mother, but I think she's just got a great, I would say, like a BS detector. I mean, like she really can kind of see through some of the stuff that happens. And so if she were to say something that's like, oh man, I'm not sure about this person or that, I'm going to think twice then about that. And so she's been wonderful. I mean, she's worked her tail off. When I first ran for Congress, I started with no name ID and no money. I was in a 7-way primary. We both knocked on thousands of doors. To this day, people will come up to me and say sometimes, hey, you knocked on my door. But usually it's your wife knocked on my door, and that's why I voted for you back then. And so she's been incredible. I have friends over the years that I've known for 20, 25 years who, and my view on that is, when you get to be in a position like governor, people's motivations for wanting to deal with you, you don't necessarily know. But if I knew someone 20, 25 years ago and we've been friends this whole time, I'm pretty confident that they're folks that are going to give it to me straight and that really have my best interests at heart. So I do have a number of those folks. And then I've got some good folks that I work with in the governor's office, people that are really smart, really hardworking, and have really helped us get to where we are in terms of the achievements that the administration's been able to accumulate.
Last question. I'm just interested, since you obviously pay attention to what's going on nationally. So Democrats win in this last November 2020. And rather than kind of taking a victory lap or celebrating their total domination of the country, they got madder And it was almost like you win a tennis match and then you leap across the net and beat your opponent to death with your racket. What was that impulse? Why did they get angrier when they won?
I think they have a fraction of their base that is just perpetually angry. I think they're very online. I think they're very caustic and nasty. And I think unless they make us a complete socialist country, these people are never going to be happy. And I think that even though Biden's been the most left-wing president of our lifetimes, I would say,
ever.
I think, even more than LBJ, because, LBJ wasn't as left-wing on the culture as Biden is, and Biden's an aggressive left-wing culture warrior. But I think anything short of complete domination of conservatism, making sure people that have conservative views are shut out from sight, anything short of that, they're just not going to be happy. But I think the problem with the Democrat Party and the reason why, they have 50 senators, a bare House majority. This is not a landslide election for them when everyone was predicting that. I think they're captive to that part of their base, and I think that's ultimately going to be their undoing in 2022, and then I think probably in 2024. So I know people were upset about the election, and it feels like we're under siege from all the stuff coming out of Washington and the media, and I get it. But I do think there's going to be a reaction to this, Tucker. There's just too many people in our country that are good people, decent people that love what America stands for. And I think you see it in these special elections already. Republicans are turning out. And I'm not suggesting everything's about the elections, because there's way more in our society we need to be dealing with that has nothing to do with elections. But I do think 2022 has an opportunity for us, to be a big statement and to show that you've gone too far.
I know you're not a shrink, but what's your explanation for that personality type? Like, people win, they get madder, they're not happy until they dominate everything, until their opponents have been silenced. Do you have those feelings within yourself ever?
No.
I don't either. Where do those come from? What is that?
I do think it's a totalitarian impulse. I think it's an impulse that you probably go back with some of the stuff with communism and some of these things. There's a philosophy and ideology about that, but then there's just an impulse to dominate other people. And I think that that's just something that's been prevalent in society. And I think that, you look at what someone like me, I'm trying to do. I want you to live your life. I have no interest in locking you down and doing that stuff. I want you to be able to do stuff. But there's, on the flip side of that, there's other people that just feel very differently about it. And just think about the impulse. If you're walking down the street, walking your dog, and you don't have a mask on, and someone's on the other side of the street with a mask, and they will storm over to you and yell at you for not having a mask on. I'm just thinking to myself, if you're worried about them then wouldn't you want to just stay away from them and mind your own business? But the impulse is, you need to be obeying, you need to be doing
So in cases like that, and I think that's a real example, what are the chances that the person who storms across the street to scream at you about a mask hates his father?
Like you said, I'm not a shrink, but I think that...
Oh, but go ahead and play one just for a second. Do you think there's any chance that person has warm feelings about his own dad? Honest question.
I think that this is clearly something beyond just, politics about whether taxes should be high, taxes should be low. But I think that, this is one part of it, but it encapsulates the moment. I think that 20 years ago, we would view losing an election being terrible because, the taxes would go up.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's not important. But man, we're talking about things that are just much more fundamental to a society now. The underpinnings of the culture, the role of faith, all this stuff. And I'm not an alarmist, but man, there are way more threats to all this stuff right now than even 10 or 15 years ago. And so that's when I talk about what we need to do. I say different things, big tech, all this stuff. But you do got to have a backbone. Because there's a lot of power and forces in our society that are against.
Who's on your side, by the way? So if big tech and the Democratic Party is a one-party state right now, and the government of China and every big corporation, if they're all against you, then who is for you?
Oh, man, the cook at the restaurant, the small business owner, the mom who was struggling with their kids not being able to be in school as their kids in school, a lot of folks who've retired to Florida, lived a good life, and really believe in America. So they may not be the loudest people in society, but they're there. And when I'm out and about in Florida, people come up to me. And they're really genuinely appreciative of Florida.
But their only power, you're basically saying voters are on my side, and you won, so you can say it with credibility. But so you really believe in the end democracy wins, that the power of the vote in the end is enough to stand up against the institutional power that opposes
I would say it's necessary but not sufficient. I mean, I think that when you look at some of the things that we discuss with the civics and teaching people about the United States, some of the way that the culture operates, I mean, I think you need to have more involvement in movies and entertainment and all this stuff. There's a market for this. People need to do it. So I don't think it's sufficient, but I do think it's necessary.
Governor Ron DeSantis, I appreciate you taking all this time. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sợi màu trắng. Móc 6 mũi đơn vào vòng tròn ma thuật. Kết hàng. Móc thêm một phần như vậy nữa. Mũi đơn vào vòng tròn ma thuật. Kết hàng.